Boys, UFC 300 just finished, and this has to be one of the biggest narrative switches of all time. I remember when the full card got announced, the bout placements and all that stuff got officially announced. Everyone was hating. Even myself, I'm not gonna lie, I was very disappointed with the card, but damn, did this card show up. It's gonna be so hard to ever top this card again. And always looking back at this in hindsight, there was no way this card wouldn't deliver. With that being said, the greatest night of fighting just happened. Now we have to matchmake every single fighter who won on this card. We are also going to go through some losers. In total, I have 22 matches that I am going to go over with you guys. Starting off with all of the losers on the card. We're going to go through this really quickly. And before we begin my official predictions, I went 9-4 on the night. And my wife, who has never watched a single fight, went 10-3. If you guys didn't watch the video where she predicted that whole card, it was hilarious. Now, she didn't get it exactly right, but just picking the winner, she went 10-3, if that makes sense. But moving on, for the main event, Jamahal Hill went to sleep by Alex Pereira, had some sweet dreams. And yeah, I think he's going to be out for a little bit of time. We have to remember, he is just coming back from that Achilles tear. He's going to need some time to recover from that knockout, because he didn't just get a TKO win. He got knocked out. He got put to sleep. With that being said, someone else who's out for a little bit of time, Jan Blachowicz. I want to see those two run it. Mainly I have this because this is a fresh matchup for both of these fighters. Plus right now for me, I don't want to see Jan versus Jiri right away. Jiri could realistically come back really fast, where Jamahal does need some time to recover. But with that being said, I did match this up because I want the winner of this fight to fight the winner of the Jiri versus the guy I'm going to match up with him later in the video. Moving on, Justin Gaethje got knocked out cold by Max Holloway. The best knockout, arguably the best knockout in UFC history. Not necessarily the knockout itself, but the ending sequence of that fight brings it up to that possibly the best knockout of all time. But in my opinion, this is most likely going to be knockout of the year. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this was really tricky for me. It's a very high possibility that Gaethje does retire, I'm not gonna lie. But with that being said, if he does decide to stick around, I think he should fight Dariush. Fresh matchup for both fighters. In my opinion, this is a good stylistic matchup for Gaethje. Now, some people are going to say, no, I want to see the trilogy between him and Poirier. And guys, I think if Poirier does lose, which let's be real, is a very, very high possibility he does lose against Makhachev, he's calling it quits there. I would be very surprised if he does not retire after losing to Makhachev. So no, unfortunately, I don't see the trilogy between him and Gaethje ever happening. But with that being said, let's move over to Charles Oliveira. Unfortunately, my boy Charles Olives didn't get the win this time, but the champ still has a name, and his name is Charles Oliveira. And I think it's time we come to the realization that Charles may never get his belt back, but if he is trying to get his belt back, let's get him a fresh opponent. Let's give him Garbrandt, see how he does there. I'm not gonna lie, this would be a very competitive matchup. Fresh matchup for both of them as well. So let's give Charles Garbrandt, see how he does there. If he wins that one, he's 1 or 2 fights away from a title fight after that. So realistically, this is the only real option I can see for Charles Oliveira. Moving up to Aleksandar Rakic, he did get a TKO loss against Jiri, and the only really fight I do want to see Rakic take, because looking through some of the rankings, he did fight a lot of guys that are close to him in the rankings, and the only real fresh matchup for him currently is Johnny Walker. Both of them coming off a TKO loss, so they're going to need a little bit of time to recover. With this being said, it's a fun matchup. Johnny has that chance to catch Rakic like we saw Jiri did, but just stylistically and overall fundamentally, I do think Rakic is better, but fun matchup. I want to see that one next. Moving up, Calvin Kattar did have the worst fight in the entire card, surprisingly. With that being said, there's not that much matchups for Calvin because he did fight, like I said, a lot of these guys in the top 15, and some of them are just too high and too low to justify putting him in there. So I think I want to see him fight another loser on the night, which is Sadiq Yusuff, coming off that TKO loss against Diego Lopez. I think this is going to be a fun fight. Both of them are going to need a little bit more time to recover. Kattar looked very off. He needs some more time. I don't even know what to say to Kattar. Low-key, he might need to go into that retire category, but give him one more shot. Give him Sadiq. If he can't get past Sadiq, maybe think about hanging them up. But moving up to someone who I do think should hang them up, we have Holm coming off a dominant loss against Kayla Harrison. And realistically, there's only one way I want to see this go. Hang off the gloves, head over to retirement street. You're done. But let's be realistic, she's pushing like 80 years old by now. It's over. We don't want to see any more Holly Holm. Moving up, Jalin Turner. This fight is going to haunt Jalin Turner for a long time. We all already know this, but he was in the top 15. He's coming off a loss from someone who wasn't even in the top 15, so he's going to drop down quite a bit, in my opinion, in the rankings. Give him someone like a Grant Dawson. A good fight for both of these guys, both coming off, I believe, a TKO loss. Grant Dawson coming off that loss against Bobby Green. Jalin Turner realistically doesn't need that much time to recover to get back into the octagon, so this one could happen somewhat quickly. And yeah, let's keep running it up. Jim Miller. Jim Miller's not going to be the same after this fight, unfortunately. This was a one-sided beatdown from Bobby Green. With that being said, someone else who isn't themselves anymore, I see this being a great retirement fight, even for both of them. I'm not gonna lie, give him Tony Ferguson, the only like realistically good matchup for Tony at this point. Jim Miller, Tony Ferguson, the only real fight I want Tony Ferguson to even take. Moving up, last person on this list, Cody Garbrandt, coming off a submission loss against Deiveson Figueiredo. And realistically, unless Cody's only in here for the paycheck and only here for fun fights, like a Dominic Cruz fight or something, I don't know. I've been seeing him saying he wants to go for that belt. He just lost against Figgy. It's going to be so hard for him to climb that ladder again. So I just think it's time to cut it, quits, end of a career. I think he should hang them up, retirement. There's really not that much else for him to prove at this point. With that being said, let's move over to all the winners on this card. Starting with the main event, Alex Pereira with a clean left hook KO, just like I said it would happen, first round KOs. And we all know Alex Pereira wants to defend his belt or even just fight at 301. Now, he did say a lot about heavyweight. Dana already shut that down. He doesn't want to see him at heavyweight right now. So, with that being said, Ankalaev has already been said is what's next for him. So, Ankalaev, 301. We pretty much already know this matchup is going to get made. Moving up, Weili Zhang just defended her belt in a super rare submission, TKO, and decision win. First round, choked her out cold. She was out for a good second. Second round, arguably could have been a TKO win from ground and pound. Then won the decision. Yang Jianan is a warrior, but regardless, she still lost, and Weili Zhang did win. Now, she has some very questionable stand-up, and I think someone who could exploit that stand-up and possibly even beat her is, of course, Tatiana Suarez, the only logical next fight for her. Moving up, Max Holloway, who left a bloody imprint of Justin Gaethje's face in the middle of the octagon after their fight. Again, one of the best fights in UFC history, in my opinion, and Max Holloway has so many options now. He could fight for the belt at 145, 155, but what I think he should personally do, chillax for a little bit, renegotiate that contract. I think already he gets pay-per-view points because now he is a BMF champion. So I think he's going to get pay-per-view points. If not, get a new contract to get pay-per-view points. You 100% deserve it. Sit out for a little bit. We just got announced that Conor versus Chandler is happening. I've been thinking this whole time, Chandler's coming in, knocking Conor out cold. But with that being said, I have no idea what the future holds. But if everything goes to plan, Conor knocks out Chandler, calls out Max Holloway for the rematch for the BMF championship. So that's what I think is going to happen for Max. Max versus Conor for the BMF title. You cannot tell me if Conor beats Chandler, they are not going to try their best to make this matchup. Moving up, Arman Tsarukyan did get the win over our boy Charles Olives. Let's just reverse for a second. I did call we're going to see a new mythical fighter, and I think that did happen. I think we saw a new mythical floral shorts Max Holloway on Saturday, so I want my props for that. But let's move over to Arman. He did get the decision win over Oliveira. So with that being said, there's really no other choice. Give him the title. I think Makhachev is going to beat Dustin, so his next opponent is going to be Makhachev for that 155 championship, our rematch. Arguably one of the most competitive fights at this division for Makhachev, which is great. Moving up, Bo Nickal obviously won. Now, he didn't look as good as a lot of people did think he was going to be. Regardless, didn't face that much adversity, and it's crazy. It's crazy how people are like, oh no, Bo, it's okay. Don't hang your head down too low. You did what you're supposed to. But when Aljamain Sterling does pretty much the same thing, everyone's hating on him. Everyone's booing him. So just very stupid in my opinion. But Bo did win. Obviously, we all knew this was going to happen. But with that being said, I want to jump up the rankings. I want an actual test, and we already know who that test is going to be, who he should have fight on 300. Bo Nickal, GM3, run that. I want to see where Bo Nickal is, and GM3 is always a good way to gauge someone on how good they actually are. So GM3, Bo Nickel, run that, put him on maybe the Makhachev card, or if you really want to hold up for a little bit long, put him on the Connor card. Moving up, Yuri did get the win over Rakic, which I did predict. Yuri is just a madman. He low-key got that Tism power in him. And yeah, crazy first round, ended up getting the TKO win in the second round, and I don't know if this guy is even still in the UFC or if he died or something. But that being said, I don't want to see Yuri or Jamahal fighting for the title anytime soon. I want them to get a few wins. That's why I have Jamahal versus Jan. Winner of that fights the winner of Yuri versus Krylov, and then the winner of that fights for the title. That's what I would like to see. Yuri didn't take that much damage, so he could make a quick comeback. Krylov hasn't fought in a year, so he should be ready anytime now. Honestly, I don't even know where this guy is. Hopefully he's still in the UFC. But yeah, other than that, for Yuri, there would have been just a lot of like rematches or a lot of stuff down the rankings that I didn't really want to put him against. And I don't really want to see him run it back with Alex, coming off only a single fight win. But that being said, moving on to Aljamain Sterling. I don't know why he fought Kattar, to be honest. I wanted him to originally fight the guy I'm going to matchmake him with right now, which is T-City. He originally should have just fought Ortega, I'm not gonna lie, but they decided to go with Rodriguez versus Ortega. But with that being said, both of them are looking for that title shot. I think winner of this fight is next up for that title shot. A lot of people are gonna say this is too much of a jump for Aljo, but we do have to remind ourselves that he was a very dominant champion, so we need to give him some sort of grace with that. So T-City, Aljamain Sterling, I think that's a perfect matchup for this. And that's the fight I'm hoping to see. I'm not gonna lie, I think this would be amazing to watch. But moving on, we have Kayla Harrison retiring 80-year-old Holly Holm dominantly. And I don't even know if she got hit this fight. That's how dominant it was. But you cannot tell me this girl is natural. You're telling me this shit that we watched on Saturday, that is naturally attainable for a woman. Hell no, she looked like Brock Lesnar in there. That was crazy. But with that being said, she's up next for a title shot. Do I think she's going to be the next fight for Pennington? I don't. I think Pennington versus Pena is either being worked on or is already official for an upcoming pay-per-view. With that being said, I think Pena is going to win. So Kayla's next fight is going to be for the championship against Pena. And yeah, really only logical next step for Kayla Harrison. Hopefully she brings some life into this division. Moving up, we have Diego Lopez. One of the best fights on the card. And unfortunately, he didn't get that $300,000 bonus. But regardless, I was having a hard time matching him up, I'm not gonna lie. But I think someone up the rankings for him, a fun fight, could be Dan 50K Ige. Could be a very fun on the feet fight, but once it gets down to the ground, I think Lopez would have his way with him. But with that being said, I think this is a good, fun, stylistically good matchup for Diego Lopez, and I could see the UFC wanting to build Diego Lopez up and up and up and get some nice highlights on his record. Then coming up next, we have Money Moicano getting it done by TKO win versus Jalin Turner, one of the best comebacks of the year. Originally, I did want him to fight Paddy Pimblett, but I think it's time for Moicano to look up the rankings and not down to an unranked fighter like Paddy Pimblett. With that being said, the only logical next step up for Moicano, the man who cannot afford to lose, is Dan Hooker. I think this will be a great fight. Very similar to the Jalin Turner fight. So we already had a full camp for a very similar style in Dan Hooker. And yeah, I think this is the next logical step up for Moicano. Maybe run this in the Perth card. Moving up, Jessica Andrade got the decision win. And I think, unless we want to see some rematches and stuff like that, the only next logical fight for her is Verena. She just came off a win, I believe, last week. So the timing for this is perfect for both of them. From what I do remember, both of them didn't have that much damage throughout their fight, so they could arguably come back pretty fast. And yeah, it's tough to match up Jessica Andrade just because she's fought so many people in the division. But this one, like I said, a fresh matchup for both of these fighters. Moving up, Bobby Green had a crazy fight against Jim Miller, unfortunately stopping Jim Miller's streak of winning on UFC 100, 200. Unfortunately not getting it done at UFC 300. With that being said, he came off a good win. He called out Paddy Pimblett. I don't see why we shouldn't make that happen. Paddy Pimblett versus Bobby Green on the London card is the next logical step up for Paddy. I don't think he deserves someone as high as a rank as Moicano, so give him Bobby Green. That's a good test up for Paddy, and just a fun matchup in general. The trash talk and the fighting itself is going to be amazing. And yeah, I can see it's on the next London card, so put it on there. Then to wrap this all up, Deiveson Figueiredo did get the win over Cody Garbrandt. In some of the interviews, he said he doesn't want Peter Yan. He just strictly wants the title. For everything he did previously in his old weight class, he just wants a title shot. Do I think he deserves a title shot? Hell no. Coming off a win over Cody Garbrandt, who isn't even ranked, gets to propel you into a automatic title shot? No. Like, boy, you ain't no Sean O'Malley. You're not that big of a star. And don't get me wrong, I had a tough time trying to figure out who they should match him up with. Do I think that they want that Sean O'Malley versus Deiveson Figueiredo fight? I could see that being a pretty decently big fight. I think it would be a good stylistic fight for Sean O'Malley, but he needs to get a few wins first. This is the fight I was having the hardest time trying to match up. And that's just because this division is so stacked right now. And I can see a lot of these fights being already booked. And the only one I could possibly see happening maybe is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Corey Sandhagen. Now, I do know Corey is, I think, scheduled to fight Umar. I don't know if that's even been official yet. I don't think we should reward Umar with Corey. That's just my personal take. So I think this is a good fight. Winner of this gets a title shot. But honestly, in my opinion, this one was a really hard one to matchmake. But I think this would be a fun stylistic matchup for both of these people. Both of them have good stand-up. Both of them have good takedowns. Corey's has been practicing his takedown defense and offense, so I think this would be a great stylistic matchup for both of these fighters. That being said, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this matchmaking? Rare MMA here to stay. Let me know what you guys thought of UFC 300. Was it the best card ever? Best card of the year for sure. I absolutely loved it from beginning to the end. And yeah, thank you guys so much for all of the support recently. We've been growing super fast. We're about 50 subscribers deep so far. So thank you for everyone who has subscribed so far. It means so much. If you made it to the end of the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you never miss any of my newest videos. And yeah, there's really not that much else left to say except for I will see you guys in my next video.